If you've ever wondered whether you're neurodivergent or just felt like you see the world a little differently, you're not alone. I was diagnosed autistic at 25, and suddenly, so many things I never had words for started to make sense. Here, I share the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful parts of life through an autistic lens. My name is Elena Carroll, and if you're looking for answers, understanding, or just an autistic friend, you're in the right place. Have you ever been in a moment where you're really, really enjoying yourself, but suddenly this wave of sadness that this moment isn't going to last forever, it just hits you out of nowhere? This is the feeling of nostalgia, and for autistic, neurodivergent people, this feeling can be ever present and really, really debilitating at times. As someone who is autistic, I have gone throughout my life with this very sad feeling lingering inside of me, and I could never explain it because I was obviously enjoying a lot of these moments, but they hit me in such a sad way. And I feel like that's the thing that I can relate to. That's the emotion that I can relate to the most in life is sadness. I love sad songs, like doom and gloom feels like quite a comfortable, maybe not comfortable, familiar feeling. And I feel like a lot of this is down to how I process nostalgia, how I process memories, and life passing me by. I think that this is a very common experience for autistic people. The autistic people that I have met in my life, when I have kind of talked about this emotion, have really resonated with it. A few weeks ago, I put up this tweet on my Instagram. Do any other autistic people relate to the feeling of knowing a moment is nostalgic while it's happening? So instead of just enjoying it, you're already sad that it will end. It's like joy and grief at the same time, a core memory forming before the moment has even passed. I got 256 comments back to this post and a lot of engagement, so I know that it is something that a lot of people do relate to if they are neurodivergent. And so I kind of want to explore this a little bit more in detail today. I want to look into why this happens and kind of explore it through a neurodivergent person's lens. Obviously, the emotion of nostalgia is something that a lot of us can relate to. I don't know if you guys have seen those TikToks or those AI images of places that really elicit a particular feeling inside each one of us when we look at it. And it may not be a memory that we have lived ourselves, but we can connect to it. I know that I really love these like 80s dark sounding tunes that people have created on TikTok. I'll like pop a little snippet here. It's such a weird feeling when you haven't lived that. I was not alive in the 80s, but I can connect with that time period, and I don't know what that is. It's incredibly fascinating to my brain. It's kind of a mix of joy and sadness, as I mentioned in my tweet. And I think for neurotypical people, they can look at nostalgia as quite a fond experience. It feels kind of nice. It's a nice kind of dull ache of time passing. I think where it gets a little bit harder for neurodivergent people is we can access that nostalgia feeling, that nostalgia pang within the present moment. We can be so vividly in tune to time passing, of this being such a great memory that we are forming. And I think a lot of this is down to how we process emotion and memory. If you're autistic, you can probably relate to the sentiment that I'm about to share for me, which is my memory recall is often very much rooted in emotion and senses. Like, it's very sensory based. And I think that this is obviously very true for us. We store our senses very differently. So many of us have sensory overload. For me, when I was taking my autism test, I scored the highest I can possibly score for noise level. I am the most sensitive to really loud, piercing noises or really dull, annoying noises. And so for me, a lot of the memories that I can recall, oftentimes there is a link to what noise was happening or whether I was feeling overwhelmed. And this might apply to you with the senses that are, perhaps a little bit more overwhelming or sensitive for you. This might be smells or textures, even emotions as well, because we feel emotions on a very, very deep core level. And it's actually true because research shows that there's a link between sensory and emotional recall with memories. Oftentimes when we are remembering an event, we can really put ourselves in the environment again, what we were feeling. Was it because we were overwhelmed? Was that overwhelm down to our emotions? Was that overwhelm down to our senses? Was that overwhelm being down to how uncomfortable we felt? So, the thing that comes to mind when I think about this is a memory that I had of a family member's wedding. And I can obviously picture how I felt in those moments being with my family, but I can also vividly remember how dusty and dirty it was and how that made me feel like on my feet touching the dirt. And oftentimes, because I can remember details like that, it means that I can often remember like the date it was, because most of the time I can connect with myself, what was going on in my life at the time, what I was feeling, and I can remember at the time being really heartbroken over somebody that I was dating, that I was no longer dating. I think another big part that plays into why autistic people, neurodivergent people feel nostalgia on a very, very deep level is down to our empathy levels. I know that there is such a big misconception with autism empathy and it being something that, is looked at as not present, as autistic people cannot actually access empathy. We're too cold, we're too absorbed within ourselves, we're too rigid, we're too black and white thinking, too selfish, too narcissistic, whatever you want to call it. And I highly, highly disagree with that, because I think that while we may not be able to process the typical emotions within the exact moment of a situation happening, I think that it often takes us stepping away from a situation. Oftentimes for me that looks like being completely alone, maybe having like sad music on and really allowing myself to unpack what I'm feeling. We wear masks, right? We wear masks so that no one can actually see how much we're struggling. But these masks may inhibit the emotion from coming out there and then. But it does. There is still emotion and it does still come out. And all of that to say, I think autistic people can be emotional sponges to the emotion of others, and we can really put ourselves in the other person's shoes. And because of this nostalgia feeling, because of everything that's going into this, we can really feel the pain of somebody else because we know what that's like to feel that pain and that sadness. I think that this also applies to ourselves, and this is where the nostalgia can kind of come in here a little bit, because I've always had a really easy way of connecting with my younger self, and I've always been very cognizant of the fact that I was going to be getting older one day and I was going to be looking back at this version of myself, and I've done that always. I've always been able to connect back with my inner child, and so we can really feel for our younger selves in a way. It's not that I just remember being 8 years old. I can remember what that 8-year-old felt, what was going on for her. The memory recall is very much fused together with emotion and sensory links. So yeah, there's a high level of empathy for others and ourselves. Maybe this is what plays into that nostalgia feeling, if we do come up against, an environment that we were in as children, or a song we listened to as children, or just anything that brings about the spark of, oh my God, flashback. Maybe it's made all the more heavier because that connection is able to be accessed so much more easier than neurotypical people with these younger versions of ourselves. Particularly if we grew up in very uncertain, unsafe, whether that be emotionally or physically environments. I think that so many of us may have, held on to particular anchors to hold us in there and make us feel a lot more safe. So we can make emotional attachments to routines, to objects, to people, to certain times in our lives. And these are ways that we perhaps found a safety point, a way to anchor ourselves. They are ways that we found safety and continuity in a world that feels so unpredictable and unsafe. So a really, really embarrassing thing, not embarrassing, but embarrassing for a neurotypical, perhaps not embarrassing for a neurodivergent. I have always had an attachment to clothing, and perhaps that is because I guess I personify the clothing, or maybe I have given a lot of meaning to that item, having gone with me through so much of my life. And so, as I was packing to come to Canada a year and a half ago, my mum was seeing the things that I was bringing over here, and she's like, why are you bringing these holy items? Not holy like holy, but holy as in holes in the clothes. And I said, I can't leave it behind. I need them to come with me. They've been with me through so much of my life. They need to continue on with me. And this is where I think the nostalgia can come in as well, because times, places, people, objects hold a lot of meaning and value for us. I think objects become time capsules for emotions, and perhaps positive emotions when we felt safe. So let's now talk about nostalgia in the moment. This is what kind of triggered me to write this tweet in the first place, which is this feeling that I've always had, I've always felt, and particularly am feeling a whole lot more now as I am getting older, and as I am experiencing this very short window of time in my life where I am overseas. I am in Toronto, Canada. I am away from my home in New Zealand, and I'm trying to document everything and feel everything that I can and experience everything I can, but I'm also very aware that I'm going to miss this place and miss these people and miss these moments. It's always been that way, and I have always felt, this, I don't know, it's always been this sadness of knowing that one day my family weren't going to be there, my parents were going to be there, and I have been very aware of this fact as early as I've had consciousness, essentially, because those were some of my earliest experiences, were being put face to face with health problems with my family, and no one died, but I knew how fragile life was at a very, very young age. And so this has always played into how I've thought about life and how easy I know that it can be taken away. And so when I'm having incredible, amazing moments with my family, I'm also aware one day I'll think of this and wish I was back there. So then I feel the sadness. So I'm feeling the sadness for my future self, but I'm missing the moment and living the moment while it's happening. It's sometimes really annoying and debilitating. I think one reason that this can happen is time perception. There can be time perception differences for autistic people, where we are experiencing time happening way too quickly or way too slowly, depending on what is going on in our lives. So there is an extremity to the way that we are going through our lives. I don't think that it's any secret to any one of you that we experience emotions on a very deep and intense level, and I think that this makes changes of any kind or endings feel so final. Changes, I hate change. Finality is such a heavy thing that is a whole separate topic in itself. I think that this real-time nostalgia can very much be rooted in anxiety, as I have expressed with you guys. For me, it's been like making the most of it and knowing, the sadness my future self is going to be feeling. But I also think that it comes from a deep sense of gratitude, and I think that is a very, very wonderful and powerful thing that autistic people can access, is deep gratitude for what it is that we are enjoying in our lives. We might grieve the moments as they are happening, but that is why we also treasure them so much. And I think that a lot of people can be so caught up in the everyday ticking off their to-do list that they aren't actually in the moment experiencing it in real time. And that's what I love. That's what I love about neurodivergent people, is we can kind of remove ourselves from what's going on and look at the bigger picture. We're always coming back to the bigger picture, right? I also thought it was worth pointing out that maybe we are able to look back at moments in our life with a deep sense of appreciation and happiness and fondness, because maybe there were like consistent patterns or routines or things that were kind of making us happy, our nervous system's happy, all those things that make our nervous systems happy. If those were present during a time, that might mean that we are able to look back at a situation more fondly because those things were present. It was just something that I thought to point out, because I think that plays into a lot of how I experience joy and happiness in past memories. Finally, I just want to end with saying I think that this is such a gift. I really do believe that it is such a gift, as I said, to be able to experience this real-time nostalgia, because there is a duality to it, right? It's a gift in the sense that we are able to savor moments as they are happening. We are able to access these memories in such a deep and vivid way that it almost feels like we are back there, like dancing with our family members or laughing with our family members, or, opening up a Christmas present when we're a child. All these things are just felt so intensely. We can access that joy so much easier than I think most people can. We can appreciate the small details, but of course, on the flip side, there is a weight that comes to this as well, and that is the sadness, the longing for times gone by. There is a grief and there is a sadness that comes with being able to access deep emotions and deep joy. And so I think that is so true for so much of our life. There is always a duality to it. There's always a gift. There's always a positive and appreciation. But because there's such a deep positive, there's also got to be pain associated with that as well. I guess I just, at the end of the day, want to normalize that this is a very, very real experience that so many of us go through. Just become aware of it, as you're going through your life, as you're experiencing these emotions that are making you feel happy and sad. Just know that there are so many of us out there that relate to that feeling. This is what you were meant to experience on your time on earth, and truly I do believe that you were getting a truer, richer, deeper felt human experience. So I just want to leave you on that note. Autistic people rule. Sorry, I hate to tell you that, neurotypicals, but we do. This was such an amazing topic for me to talk on, because I feel like I'm able to voice things that, my inner child has wanted to kind of talk about. She's always wanted to talk about these things one day. So it feels very rewarding and special. And I'm very grateful for this moment to be sharing this with you guys if you have made it to the end of the video. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day or night wherever you are in the world. If you relate to this topic, please leave your feedback, your experiences down below. I love reading them, and I feel like we all gain so much from each other. And if you guys would like to follow any more of my content, I will leave it all down below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.